Okay, guys, the verdict. How did Fernando do at Le Mans? You're looking remarkably fresh, Tom. Give us the latest.
Yeah, Alonso's night driving in particular was a real highlight of the race. As we were doing Autosport live, you're kind of a bit distant from the race at times doing that. And the person with me sort of turned around and said, Alonso's just gone 5 seconds faster than Lopez. And by the time we recorded that, he's gone 3.7 seconds faster. And watching him just continually reel in this deficit through the night was brilliant. He said he was lucky in traffic, but there's only so much luckiness you're going to get in traffic. He was brilliant at picking off cars as well. There was a little bit of the car being in his favour. His car was set up a bit more for the night, the number 7 was set up a bit more for the day. But even with that, to be taking consistently the sort of lap times he was in the night in an LMP1 car was really special.
I suppose he could have gone into this, Glenn, thinking the team's the best team out there, the car's the best, all I've got to do is go along with the flow, but he actually became Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, I think we saw it at Indianapolis last year as well, didn't we? When he gets a sniff of a competitive car again in a competitive situation, he comes alive. And you know, Tom said that Fernando maybe felt he was a little bit lucky in the night with the progress that he made. But you make your own luck, I think. And we saw on there was a restart where they were at the back of a huge safety car queue, and you know Fernando's bouncing down the hard shoulder on the Mulsanne straight and that sort of thing. He was really up for it, and I thought it was interesting that quite often he ended up against Lopez in the other car, and I wondered if maybe what was happening there was just Lopez was a bit off colour. But we've run some of the numbers and we've taken each driver's fastest 50 laps from the race. So quite a long sample set. You'd hope you eliminate some of the sort of weird, quirky data you can get from Le Mans. If you take the fastest 50 laps from each driver in a Toyota, Fernando Alonso was the quickest on average by half a second ahead of Sebastien Buemi, who was obviously in the same car. When you make it a smaller sample set of numbers, so you're potentially looking at absolute peak pace, I think Buemi is fastest when you get down to like the fastest 10 laps. And we saw in qualifying, Kazuki Nakajima put the car on pole, not Fernando, but he certainly pulled his weight.
You were talking about traffic, and he said that I was a bit lucky in traffic, but that's probably Fernando just putting that to one side. In reality, he was brilliant in traffic in Daytona, impressed the spotters no end, and we saw that at Le Mans, and it is an art.
Yeah, we talked about it in our preview to the race we did about the things we learned, and the thing that I noticed more than anything was Alonso's just eye for detail. So when we had the rain at the end of qualifying, 56 cars sitting in the garage, fine, we'll sit here. Alonso goes out on slicks, he goes out in the intermediates, he goes out on the wets and racks up those laps, and I'm sure that will have played a key part later on because he's got that familiarity of everything Le Mans can throw at him. And obviously Toyota have had that on their mind going into this year of something always goes wrong, let's prepare for every eventuality. And Alonso is obviously very good at that, and him being against Lopez was actually really interesting as well, because Lopez, after Alonso, is probably the least experienced driver there. He took a huge step up from World Touring cars, Formula E into that, whereas a lot of the other Toyota drivers have done the LMP2 and had that experience in the prototypes a bit more. So the fact that he was matching Lopez, beating Lopez, was a really good indictment of how well he'd taken to that. And as you say, the Indianapolis was certainly a big part. Daytona as well, and Le Mans testing, it really is building up that experience, and he's excellent at doing that.
How did he look in that team environment at Le Mans with Toyota?
I think the big thing that Toyota were really impressed with was just how much he became one of the boys. And I think my understanding is that's what he did at Indy as well. He didn't come in with this kind of grandiose ego or anything like that. And I think that's really important at Le Mans, because you can't go in thinking you're a superstar and these guys are either beneath you or they're there to almost service you. And Fernando's raced a lot against some of those guys in Formula One, not necessarily at the front of the grid. Someone like Buemi was never really wheel to wheel with him. So I think it was important that he went in with the right attitude. And it sounds like even in terms of the testing, the time at the factory, all of that, I think it's been a good release for him really to not think about Formula One for a bit.
What was he like after the race, Tom?
He really struggled to process his emotions, was the feeling we got. Obviously straight away he's asked about the Triple Crown, and he was still saying that he couldn't really process the fact he'd won Le Mans. And as well, obviously he is the superstar name there and he's getting all the attention, but had a lot of time for how long he stayed afterwards, talking to his teammates, being part of the atmosphere, answering journalist questions and really soaking up what it's like to win at Le Mans.